You can't get a Lambo by buying a security token.
Hello, Malcolm.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us at Value.Tokenized today. Can you please start about telling more about what you do?
Okay, my name is Malcolm. I'm a practicing lawyer from Singapore, so I have a firm in Singapore. And we are also Gravitas International, so we are an advisory for ICO projects. It's called crowdbank.io.
Can you tell me what inspires you the most about this new thing called tokenization and security tokenization especially?
Let me take a step back and explain about blockchain in general. When I first found out more about this, slightly more than a year ago, I thought that this was the next internet. I would say this is internet's next wave. Because 20 years ago, when the internet first came out, I didn't have the chance to take part in the commercialization of the internet. But today, 20 years later, I see that the second chance is coming. And to me, in the next 10 to 20 years, every internet technology, every online technology is going to have a blockchain equivalent. So I think this is a very exciting time for this particular market. Secondly, for the securitization of assets, this is the next wave in terms of the financial market. Because today I see, there are four main categories of assets. There are cash and equivalents, there's commodities, there's real estate, and there's equities. And of course, on top of that, there's the derivatives of all of these. And that adds up to over $1,000 trillion. Crypto assets are only, like 100 billion right now, right? The market has shrank significantly the last couple of weeks. But from 100 billion to trillions of dollars, it has a very, very long way to go. So I see that this is really at the start of it. And the securitization of assets allows every asset class to become a digital form. And that will really unlock value and bring it to the common people. So this is, to me, the larger picture and why securitization is very important.
What do you think are the best real-world use cases tokenization can solve?
Oh, many. We are involved in very interesting projects, right? So some of the things that I will explain. People are saying, there's no use case for cryptocurrencies, ICOs are dead and all that. To me, that's not true, because one very good use case is in ERP systems. ERP actually exists in much of the market. Many big corporations and increasingly small corporations are going into ERP solutions. Oracle, SAP came up because of the entire ERP market. CRM products like Salesforce came up because of this market. Cryptocurrencies are actually a very nice part of this whole ecosystem because it can enable settlement, it can reduce administrative costs, and it can do smart contract calculations and settlements very easily. So this is a perfect use case, in fact, for cryptocurrencies. Another thing would be digitization of assets, which we had described earlier. So with the advent of cryptocurrencies, governments and banks are now very afraid that they will lose their power, right? Which is really happening. So this will in turn force more governance upon all these central authorities. And at the same time, now everybody can tokenize, right? So with the advent of ICOs, in essence, every single business can now become their own economy. You can create your own app, you can create your own business environment, you can do settlement within your own business environment. So this is another very good use case. Things like healthcare, to collect your own personal data. For example, in today's world, before EHR, PHR, and sharing of medical information, if I go to a hospital, that hospital does a test on me, I pay thousands of dollars, they have my record. But if I go to another hospital, I have to do all these tests all over again. So I spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time, and this inefficiency can be easily solved through a blockchain as well.
What do you think is the most valuable contribution of security tokens to the blockchain industry on the whole?
I think the access to the common man, that's something that is very important, because most securities are only accessible by the top 1-2% of the people, right? So imagine if you wanted to buy Facebook stock before it came to the market. You have no chance, no access to it. But in today's environment, with the securitization enabler, any project that is good, that has a chance of being the next unicorn, can market to the whole world. And that's what you see happening right now in the ICO space and increasingly the STO space as well. So when that happens, the common person who is an accredited investor or able to fulfill the requirements of the offering will be able to participate. So access is very important. And that, I think, is the biggest enabler in this economy. So we are increasingly seeing the millennials, the Gen Ys, having an inclusive kind of mindset. And decentralization is another mindset. And these things are going to come into the financial space as well. And with financial inclusion, yes, there might be chances of scams, you might lose your money, but at least you have a chance. right? And if you are open in terms of accepting risk and you want to participate, then let the buyer beware. You have taken your assessment, you go in, maybe you become a millionaire, maybe you lose the money, but at least you have the chance. Before that, you have no chance.
You believe that security tokenization will enable to democratize the investments market, right?
Yes, that's true.
Let's move on to the legal part. What do you think are the most important legal issues in the security token space at the moment?
Basically, every government has its own treatment of securities. Every government has its own sets of laws. And every government has its own way of dealing with ICOs and increasingly the STO market. So, for example, there's one end of the spectrum is the USA. The USA says ICOs bad, everything is a security. So 99 to 100% of all ICOs are security offerings. So you need to follow the US SEC. But on the other hand, even though the US is taking this step, the US has many departments that are conflicting. SEC has its idea, FBI has its idea, IRS has its idea, and they don't talk to each other. So this is one weakness of the US system. On the other end of the spectrum, you have China, right? China is, everything is bad, everything is banned, right? But the Chinese are the biggest investors in the world. So even now, whoever is playing with it is all the Chinese, right? And the other side another angle of this is the Japanese treatment. So the Japanese treat it as regulated. So in fact, they have approved the law that says that the top few cryptocurrencies are accepted as legal tender. So they are the same as fiat money. You can use that to pay in the stores. There are many stores in Japan that then take cryptocurrencies. And they were the first country that regulated exchanges. So when they regulated exchanges in April 2017, and then in October 2017, they issued 11 exchange licenses, suddenly the whole world shifted into Bitcoin yen. Overnight, the Bitcoin yen settlement became 60% of the worldwide volume. And their GDP went up 0.5%. That's amazing, right? Just from one regulation. So that's another angle of how regulation is good. So another new thing that's going to come up will be Singapore. But before I talk about Singapore, there's Malta, right? Malta made an announcement in July that the act was passed, 4 readings in Parliament, and then the act was passed, and the new cryptocurrency laws were put into place. So the VFA and the MFSA came up. With that, many exchanges suddenly went over to Malta. Right? Before that, nobody knew where was Malta. So suddenly Binance said, oh, we are going to be here. Okay, then everybody followed. So that's another very interesting development in the space. When this is called jurisdiction shopping. So when you're an ICO, you don't know whether to be in Russia or Germany or Singapore or China. That's called jurisdiction shopping. So you choose the best law for your project and what price. Best price? Okay, best price, that's another story. Right? But yes, jurisdiction shopping is very important in terms of ICOs and STOs. And back to what I was saying earlier, right? Every government has its own way of treating things. So this is something that is coming up. So to me, some regulation is good. In fact, the more regulation there is, the better for the overall industry because more of the traditional monies can come in. And this is where I was leading to. So Singapore is going to be the next big development in the legal landscape. Singapore had the first reading of the new Payment Services Act on 19th of November. And within the next few weeks, after the second reading and the act being passed, then the regulatory environment in Singapore will be very strong. And it will be very clear what can be done, what cannot be done. And with that, more custody services can be provided for the financial services industry, and then the traditional money can flow into the system. There are trillions of dollars in Singapore actually looking for good projects. And once the law is passed, then this money can get into the space. But before the law is passed, it's not legal, not illegal, so everybody doesn't know what to do. But once it's legal, then all this money will come in.
When we speak about doing an ICO or STO, most likely now in Asia, for example in Singapore, what are the authorities you need to take into account?
Okay, so in Singapore right now, actually you don't really have to look at any authorities. The main thing is whether it's a security or not. Actually, MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, which governs Singapore, make a guideline publication saying the different examples of when you need to be considered security and when it's not a security. The position in Singapore since 2014 was that digital currencies are not considered as currency. It's going to be treated like a commodity. And the MAS has come out on many occasions to say it will never change this. It will still be the same position. So that's the Singapore authority. In Malaysia, it's Bank Negara. So actually, we consulted a bit for the previous government, but changed already, so useless. So the new government has come out to say that Bank Negara is in charge of all cryptocurrencies. So if you want to do an ICO, you must seek Bank Negara's blessing. And the Malaysian system has a sandbox as well, similar to Singapore. So previously, the Malaysian government was encouraging ICOs, encouraging new projects to enter into the Malaysian sandbox. And then they say, okay, then after that we see how it's going to be done. In Hong Kong, it's the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, HKMA. So they have also come out to make some statements in the recent weeks and months saying that certain things will be looked at, but it's not clear, right? There's heavy influence in Hong Kong from China. So despite them saying, you know, we are not going to do anything, you can see the laws increasingly changing towards that. But having said that, Hong Kong is still being maintained as an outpost, meaning a communication post between China and the rest of the world. So it will still be relatively free. If you look at the other areas in Southeast Asia, Vietnamese government doesn't really know what it's doing right now, so there's no law on it. It has only passed one law that says that you are not allowed to make payments using cryptocurrency. So if the cryptocurrency has a utility, then it's not governed. But if you're making a payment, they can fine you up to $8,000 for one transaction. So that's the Vietnam position. Cambodia has come out recently to support one or two ICOs, and some exchanges. So it's kind of progressive, but at the same time, they also don't know what's going on, right? So they are approving on a case-by-case basis. Indonesia, in the beginning of the year and last year, the position was that cryptocurrencies were frowned upon. So it's not illegal, not legal, but towards the not legal part. And then early in the year, they passed a law to ban payments as well. So if you want to do payments using the same position as Vietnam, if you want to do payments using cryptocurrencies, then it's not allowed. You must have a payments license. But everything else in the ICO space, I think around May, they made a series of two announcements that freed the industry. So there was previously is not legal, not illegal, but towards the not legal part. But in May, it became towards the legal part, so it's okay. Then Philippines and Thailand recently, in the first half of this year, passed the laws. So now the Thai SEC is saying, yes, we have a regulated regime. I think this year there are about 10 projects that are passing in Thailand. And in Philippines, the law also came up very quickly. And the Philippines position for ICOs is the same as the Philippines position to gaming, meaning that we will issue you licenses, you can do it for the rest of the world, but don't touch my people, right? So in Philippines right now, the law is very regulated. You can get all these licenses, but you can only pitch to the rest of the world. You cannot sell to the Filipinos. So that's the coverage of the Southeast Asian market. Then of course, the big countries, China is under the People's Bank of China. Then in Korea, they are very unclear. The Justice Department wants to regulate, the Tech Department and the Finance Department wants to open it up, so they are constantly fighting. Then in Japan, the regulators are pretty hard on cryptocurrencies right now because they had a major loss of face due to the big hack on CoinCheck. CoinCheck, $530 million was lost. And then after that, massive Japanese loss of face, so they shut down everything. Everything stopped. Right, so the Japanese regulators are quite slow. They want to be very, very careful because the most money that was hacked was from Japan over the years. Yeah.
The question we often get at Value.Tokenized is, how do you get an advisor for your STO? What is needed to become an advisor in the security token space, and how do you get one?
The advisors for security tokens are the same as advisors for securities law, meaning that you can go to licensed dealer brokers, or you can go to corporate finance advisors, or you can go to lawyers. So in certain cases, in certain countries, you can also go to accountants who have the requisite licenses. So these are the ones that are able to operate for security token offerings. So how do you get one? Well, you can look for directories, or you can ask for referrals, or you can look for us. But this market is growing. And in fact, we are seeing a lot of security token offering platforms. In fact, we were advising one or two others as well that are looking at this space and creating these platforms to launch. So what's important to know is that it depends on the country, and most countries will have something equivalent to a dealer broker license. So they are only allowed to sell if they have this license, unless they are selling to exempted people. So exempted people are usually people who are accredited investors. Again, accredited investors can have different definitions in different countries, right? So you have to check with your national law. In certain cases, there will be financial advisors, like people who can sell bank products, can sell financial products, can sell insurance. Those are the kinds of people that can still sell these products.
What is your opinion concerning security tokens liquidity? Because it is one of the main issues the players that want to enter this market are thinking about.
Yes, actually, the players who are entering this market don't think about liquidity. That's something I face around the world. You know, I see so many conferences, and then I see a project, and then they say, "Oh, I'm a security token offering." Then I say, "Okay, are you sure?" They say, "Yeah. My lawyers and my accountants told me to do this." Then I say, "Yeah, because they want to earn your fees, right? Because if you are doing a security token offering, you must go to the KPMGs, the PwCs, the expensive law firms, and then they charge you." But they don't think about liquidity. So often I will ask these projects, okay, good, you're now a security token, which exchange are you going to list on? Can you name me 5? Often they can't even name me 1, right? Because there's no liquidity. And that's the big problem in the security token offerings market. Utility tokens represent, over 90% of the exchanges out there. There are hundreds of exchanges, and over 90% are utility tokens. And they're not allowed to sell securities because they are not regulated. So if you want to have a security token to be sold on the open market, then you need to have that license. And it's very expensive and very time consuming to get that. In addition to that, only accredited investors can buy. So you're back to the even worse market than the stock market. So that restricts the buying population to a very small pool. I don't see much liquidity in the market for the next 1.5 years, right? Yes, a lot of the wave in the US, and the US is forced to do it because everything is a security, so they have to do it, right? Europe is following US because it's the same people in suits, right? You go to Zurich, it's the same people in the suits and the ties, and they're all bankers, and they only talk about securities because that's the thing they know. And then when I challenge them and ask them, where do you buy and sell? Then they don't know. So that's a big problem. Yeah, you're totally right. The liquidity issue is a very big concern. And I hope that the entrepreneurs and the projects that want to do their projects will think about this. But vested interest in the advisors, they want to earn money, so they will tell you, do security token. Yeah.
Do you think that security tokens need to be run on a private protocol, or public Ethereum blockchain also works for this?
I think it doesn't matter so much. There are always good use cases either way. It can be good in certain public blockchains, it can be good in private blockchains, permission chains. There are many aspects of how it's done. So it really depends on the project and the target audience and how they want to do it. To me, the technology is not so important unless you are looking at decentralized platforms. Now, when it comes to decentralized platforms, then speed, transaction speed, and safety and security is very important. But other than that, if it's a centralized platform, then it really depends on the business case more than the technology. In fact, when you see most of the projects in the world failing from ICOs, it's simply because the entrepreneurs don't know how to do business. So they raise the money and buy Lambos, go to the beaches, and they don't do the work. So it's not because of the tech. Right? The tech is only one aspect. I would say it's actually 80-20. 20% is tech, even though it's a tech industry. 80% is whether you know how to run your business.
So do you think that security token offerings will enable people to buy Lambos, or not so fast perhaps?
No, because it's a security, right? So again, same thing, when I see the projects and then they say they want to do a security token offering, then I say, who will buy your token? Because the people who invest in the ICO market want Lambos. You can't get a Lambo by buying a security token because you appreciate at 5% or 10% per year. No way you ever get to that level. Right? You don't see something that will appreciate that much. Yeah, so it's very tough. By the nature of it, security token offerings will be a much less rate of return. But of course, if you invest in the correct projects, it could very well be another thing, right? The Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, yeah. It could be, but it's much tougher.
Thank you, Malcolm, for being with us at Value.Tokenized today. It was very useful to hear all your answers, and I believe it will be contributing to the adoption of security token industry on the whole.
You're welcome.